Hello everybody, Ben Woodruff here, and in today's video I am going to be teaching about the origins of the southwestern motif. Doesn't sound interesting, I promise you it is. And some of the stuff you'll be like, yeah, I kind of would have expected that, and some of you're gonna be like, oh, I had no idea about that. Why did I never think about that? So I think you're gonna find it very interesting. Before I jump in, if you haven't, if you can hit subscribe, appreciate it. It helps me keep this channel up and going. And let's dive into this. Southwestern motif. Sometimes it's the Western motif, sometimes it's the Southwestern motif. You've seen it everywhere. It's all over the place. It's a pattern of designs, geometric shapes and patterns and bright colors. It's synonymous with the Southwest. We see it all the time on Western wear. So cowboy shirts all the time are gonna have it. All kinds of cowboy shirts always have the Southwestern motif. And you see it on blankets as well. Modern Native American blankets that both woven, we'll get into that in a minute, as well as like modern prints. It's a print, it's a style, and it's synonymous with the Southwest. We don't think a lot about it because humans, all humans as a species, we like repeating patterns. It's just, even the absolute most ancient of cave art shows, humans like repeating patterns. Not sure exactly why, but we do. It is something that is innate to being human. We like repeating patterns, and these patterns are cool looking, they're fun, they're nice, they're beautiful. We enjoy them. But where do they come from? Where's the origin of this? Because there's nothing more Southwestern than these patterns, but where do they come from? Well, as it happens, one of my strange patterns, I'm a very creative person. I love to create, I love to paint, I love to draw, I love fluidity and creativity, but I have also very much a left brain, an analytical mind that sees patterns and wants to understand the math behind patterns. Doing it since I was a kid, looking at trees and plants and learning the math. Plants are incredibly mathematical in what they do. And so I was always, as soon as I learned about algebra, I wanted to come up, what is the formula for these plants and understanding it. For example, one of my favorites, the desert trumpet plant, is this incredible plant. I want to do a video just on it, but the desert trumpet plant, very unique, so unique that Star Trek invented an alien species based off of this plant. But the desert trumpet plant, I want to know what is the math of this plant. So I analyzed it and measured it all out and came up with a formula for the expression of this plant. You can put it in a computer and generate this plant repeatedly. So when it came to pottery, when I started looking at pottery types and ceramics throughout the Southwest, I noticed some things. I noticed some patterns. I noticed that some of these were very geometrical and some of them were not. And we're going to get into that in a minute. But first we're going to start off with just kind of the origins of the geometrics and how this works. So this pattern that we see, this Southwestern motif, a lot of people generally will say that the origin comes from baskets. Now, basket making is as old as humans. You know, we weave baskets and we use them for all kinds of things. We use them from catching fish to hauling goods to storing things to, you know, all kinds of things. Baskets are common. Humans do it. It's innate to being human. But because you're weaving one direction and then weaving in the other direction, doing this, making a basket, it lends itself to patterns, to going up and down. If you put in a different color of fiber that you're weaving in, suddenly you have a new color and you have a new pattern, you have shapes. And so people learn, oh, we can do this, just like little steps. And people did this everywhere, including Native Americans. It lended itself to that. The same thing happened with weaving. Native Americans are well known for incredible weaving. And if you are weaving something, you have the same thing. You have fiber going one direction and you're weaving fiber and going another direction. And you just do that as practical fiber, but then you realize, well, hey, I can do a little pattern and I can even make a scene, but these beautiful patterns. So the first part of this isn't that exciting. The fact that both the making of baskets and the making of woven fiber blankets lended itself naturally to these geometric shapes and patterns. And we see it, and we see it even today in the blankets that are woven today are just woven into these patterns. And it is the easiest thing to do rather than doing weird curves or angles, just do. It's the same thing we have with beadwork. The beads that most tribes were using anciently were large. Now there's modern day seed beads made out of glass manufactured that you can get very fine detail. But the old original beadwork it's very angular. I do a lot of beadwork. I do bead looms and I do a lot of beadwork, but I use big beads, what we call pony beads. And again, you're getting these patterns that are, they're very geometric in shape. And again, the medium with which these things were being expressed lent itself to geometric patterns. So boring so far. Interesting but boring, of note. Okay, so basically, here's how you sum it up. Everything we've talked about before, so far in this video, are items that can be replicated with Legos. It's what I call the Lego principle. So if you look at a pattern, if it's on a blanket, if it's on a pot, if it's on a woven, whatever, if it's on a basket, could this pattern be replicated in Lego form? Yes? Okay. That's the Southwest motif. But there's something else. We're going to get to it in a minute. But first, I have to give deference to the fact that there are other patterns that did not come. So start over here. So there's three things. We're talking about the geometric patterns, and then we're going to talk about the earth origin patterns, and then we're going to talk about the Zentangle patterns and where they come from. So what we've done so far is anything that could be replicated in Lego form is kind of the geometric patterns, concentric and geometric shapes that can be replicated by Legos. They can be doing it in beadwork, they can do it in baskets, they can do it on woven goods, cut and dry. Okay, the next there's a lot of plants. Plants will give you math, because remember, plants are mathematical. So the first one is the agave plant. Agaves are very important. Agave is edible. You use the fiber to make rope and to weave moccasins. You use the flower stalk to make all kinds of things, including bow drills. And the plant itself, right when the plant goes to flower, you take that core of the agave, cut off all the outside, and you roast it, and it's sugary and it's very celebratory. So the agave plant was very important, and we know, I'll do a separate video on agave plants. We know that native tribes cultivated specific breeds. They cultivated and grew and domesticated wild agave plants. So agave was in the forefront of their minds. But agave has amazing math, and if you look at it straight from above, of the way it blossoms out, it has amazing concentric patterns. We see a lot of pottery that follows the, and I've written up the math of agave plants. Now, I'm not the only one who has, a lot of other people have too. It's a very simple repeating pattern with a very specific rate of which it delineates outward. Agave plants, there's a lot of pots, and if you look at this image of an agave plant from above, that is the pattern that you start on the bottom of the pot, and you draw the lines outward following agave math, and then you fill it in however you want with the rest. So that's agave math. So many pots that don't follow, that cannot be made by Legos, follow agave math. There's another one. There's a plant called Datura stremonia. It's also called like Jimson weed and Jamestown weed. This is a powerful psychedelic. We're going to get into psychedelics in a minute. This Datura is a beautiful and very deadly plant. Just about any part of the plant is deadly. The seeds are psychedelic, but not in a good way. Now, most of the use of this plant has been lost to history. We know in the 1800s, pioneers and stuff would do things where, like, if you chew on the leaves, it can help with certain ailments. But we know that the proper thing is take like a seed and render it down with animal fat and tallow and do certain things to reduce the toxicity. This is a very powerful entheogen, a very powerful psychedelic, and you read online people who have done this incorrectly. Sometimes they never come back from it. Like mentally, it can mess up your brain so badly that you're done for. You're just in a bad place forever. But done properly with the help of a medicine man who knows the proper dose and the proper preparation, this plant gave powerful visions. And it grows everywhere in the Southwest, everywhere in the Southwest. I always point it out when I go to visit ruins. I'm like, there's Datura right here. Now, the bloom, the flower, when it's closed up and begins to unravel, we see that math replicated all over in pottery. The fully bloomed flower itself is the same math but expanded out at a different rate. We see that math executed in pottery. And the seed pods themselves that have those psychedelic seeds, that also we see expressed in pottery. We see that math as well. So again, ancient people looked at the math of this plant, replicated that math in pottery, and we see that. It's really cool, it's really beautiful, and once you know what to look for, you're like, oh, you're going to start to see it more and more in ancient pottery. Now the datura moth, there is a moth that has co-evolved with the datura plant. It's one of the only animals that will pollinate it. Now when it pollinates it, even just from the nectar it gets from the flower, it will kind of be like, whoa, hey man, it's kind of, but that would kill almost anything else that tried. So the datura moth is associated with the datura plant, and since this was a powerful and important psychedelic used by ancient Native Americans, we see a lot of deference to the datura moth in pottery. We see mothmen and we see moth creatures and depictions of the datura moth, including the datura moth pollinating the datura flower. So we see that quite often. Then, of course, there's peyote, the famous peyote cactus, which is a famous psychedelic that a lot of people are aware of. Now, I have to pause on this and say, I grew up in the United States, and I grew up in the 80s and early 90s, and, we had the DARE program, and like, just say no to drugs. So we grew up with this idea that drugs are bad and are forbidden. This was not the cultural norm in the Southwest United States and the Northwest Mexico. There's over 30 known psychedelic plants in the Southwest United States and Northwestern Mexico. And these were used for a wide range of reasons. Some of these were used in a celebratory recreational fashion, just like some people do in America today. Like, hey, this is illegal, but hoo-hoo, we're having fun. It wasn't illegal though. It was just like, hey, we're getting together, we're celebrating, we're at the center of the plaza, we're above the kivas, and we're just going to partake of these as part of, we're dancing, we're having rituals, and we're going to take these communally as part of that. Now, you could say the same thing with alcohol. Alcohol isn't normally considered an entheogen. We know that there were alcoholic beverages, including the most common is pulque, which is made from agave, which is originally the origins where you get tequila. But we know that that was a ceremonial drink, and it's like, hey, we're drinking these and we're having powerful experiences socially. Maybe liken it to New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve, everybody comes together and we're all drinking and we're all celebrating the countdown until the new year, yay! It's a communal thing, and the drinking was part of it. So we know that drinking, a pulque, this agave drink, and we know that, drinking other alcoholic drinks could be ceremonial. But we absolutely know that many of these entheogenic plants and mushrooms were taken in a social way. They were also taken in a ritual way, like you would go to the shaman and say, hey, this is the medicine man, I want some guidance, I want some knowledge, will you hear? And so under the supervision of somebody knew what they were doing, you take the right dose and they sit there with you, and then when you're done, then they help you walk through it and what you experienced. And that's kind of lost today. We don't have a lot of that. Instead, you have people just recreationally taking things. But again, to be fair, both recreational use of these plants as well as deep, important soul journey type reasons were both done by these ancient peoples. Which brings us to peyote. Peyote is considered a sacred medicine today. I'm not going to get much into it in its use, but I will say the basic shape of this plant is it's a very kind of bulbous, kind of almost like a pumpkin-shaped cactus, and it has the little pokey thing sticking out, and in the center it'll have a bloom. We see this as a repeated pattern in pottery all over. So it's a very simple math, almost a childish level of mathematics, but we see this depicted regularly in the pots. So again, from agave plants to datura plants in all its forms, the datura seed pods to peyote, these are just a few examples of, and the moth itself, the datura moth, these are a few examples of natural things in the natural world being replicated into pottery, and their math being. So we've got geometric, and you have the natural world. The last one is Zentangle. Zentangle breaks the rules. If you look at Zentangle pottery, you're like, yeah, there's a pattern, but I can't quite wrap my head around what that pattern is. How often is it this? What is it doing? It's kind of all over the place, but it's not random. It's these over-the-top elaborate patterns, and it is a very specific math. Now, you see it in, so again, looking forward, if you look at pottery in the future, anywhere pottery from the Southwest or Northwest Mexico, then take a look and say, okay, is this something that could be made out of Legos? Yes or no? If it's no, is it something from the natural world? Yes, no. If it's no, is it in the realm of the Zentangle? Now, the Zentangle patterns and math, they're different because they are not things that could be easily replicated with Legos. And my favorite example of this, the Zapotec in Mexico, which is ancient people. It's like 300 BC to like 1200, 1300 AD. I should look that up, but anyways, I'll do a video on the Zapotec specifically later. But at their temples, beautiful temples, they have a lot of relief carved stonework. And the stonework is really breathtaking. And if you look at it, there'll be panels, and at the top, this is geometric, and it could be made out of Legos. The next band down is geometric. It can be made out of Legos. And then the bottom band, what is this? It's a weird pattern. It couldn't be made out of Legos. It's kind of strange, and it feels different. It feels kind of exotic, and it's unusual. We see this all throughout the Zapotec. And again, we see this also all throughout pottery, throughout the Southwest United States and Northwestern Mexico. We see this separate in about the same abundance. I would say it's about 50-50. Well, I mean, then you got to make sure. I'd say like 45% is geometric, 45% is Zentangle, and then the remaining percent is copying, agave plants, datura plants, peyote buttons, datura moss. It's copying that math. So the bulk, it's about 50-50. So why I'm bringing this up is work has been done by scientists because, again, I grew up in a realm where the idea of all drugs are bad. And we know how different this is. There's an Aztec deity figure called Xochipilli, which I have videos on Xochipilli specifically. Xochipilli, there's this famous statue, and he is depicted in the thralls of a powerful drug trip, which, if you know people who experience these things, his hands are out, his mouth is open, his eyes are wide and deep socketed, and he's in this state. And all around him, all around the base of the statue, are relief card images of many of these different psychedelic plants and mushrooms that the Aztecs used. So there was an understanding that this is just a part of life, where today we kind of like, oh, that's kind of taboo, or oh, it's rebellious. It was just part of life. And there is a specific plant called Salvia divinorum. It's an interesting plant too, because at least last I checked, it's not even illegal in the United States. It's not a controlled substance. But this can give you, you'll see, unfortunately, there's people online who are just like, hey, we're going to do an internet trend. I'm going to give this to my friend. And then they like zone out for about 60 seconds and are drooling. And then they have this vast difference of time. Apparently, I've never taken it. But apparently, if you do it in a proper setting with proper preparation, that it will give you math, repeatable math, and it is the Zentangle math. Now we know Salvia divinorum comes from right where the Zapotecs were from. It's right there, and it's the plant they had, and when you take it, it will give you Zentangle math. There's been studies done where people have done it, and it's repeatable. So it's like you're under the influence, and it gives you math, and you afterwards can do certain things, and if you take it again or have somebody else take it, they are come up with the same math. So this is a repeatable mathematic formulaic version of addressing pottery or addressing relief carvings. Now, by comparison, psilocybin mushrooms, there's a wide range of species all over the world, and people have used that as an entheogen forever. That will give you fractals and fractal math, geometric math. So that's the kind of math that you have on the regular geometric pottery. It's totally different type of medicine, totally different type of math. So my point is that there's all these forms of this kind of Southwest motif. But once you know what to look for, anything you're looking at, if you're looking at a cowboy shirt, if you're looking at an ancient pot, if you're looking at a relief carving in Mexico, look at that pattern and ask yourself, could this be made out of Legos? If it can be made out of Legos, it's geometric. If it couldn't, it's either from the organic world or from the Zentangle world, and the different math. So it's really fascinating. Now, we don't know for sure where all this came from. All of these things probably had their influence, but once you know it, you can't unsee it. If you go to many of the Mayan ruins in southern Mexico and Guatemala, a lot of these sites, they'll be Mayan art is very fluid. It's very organic and smooth and very kind of wispy. But then you'll also randomly have these really angular, hard angles of geometric patterns. Also, so they embrace both of that art. Same thing with the Aztecs. You have the Aztecs, which had, in the Zapotecs and Mixtecs, you have different math. So this math comes from different sources. And I think it's important to just be aware of all these sources. You need to be aware of the fact that Salvia divinorum, the plant, will give you specific Zentangle math that can be applied directly to these elaborate pottery motifs, and that people aren't aware of that. And so that's why I wanted to share that. And again, so many of the really pretty organic patterns we have are based off of the datura plant. We don't know how important some of these plants were in the Southwest. We know they were readily available, and we know that the ancients did use them, and they knew the proper way to balance and pre-treat and how to set up the whole scenario so that you were having a good, powerful experience. We don't have that knowledge directly anymore. And without it, you could run into some trouble. So I wanted to share this. I hope you enjoyed it. I would love to know your thoughts and your experiences as well, because something as simple as the Southwest geometric motif actually has such a rich history from many different directions. So appreciate you watching. If you haven't already, if you could hit subscribe, I very much appreciate it. I love reading your comments and hearing your personal experiences. And always remember that life is a gift. So never stop learning and never stop exploring. We'll see you next time.